This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by ShireSociety.com. Okay, so now I'm recording on my end, if that's all right.
Yep.
Okay, and yeah, now we can just start. So I'm it's Dave Ridley here. I'm with JP Matt Phillips, also known as Centurion, a sort of a cop. I think of you as a cop blocker, sort of. But is that the right way to describe you?
Yeah, or an auditor, or whatever the new name may be. I've been doing it longer than most, since 2008, before even the Free State Project showed up. So, I don't know what to call me, just someone that's out for accountability, and you can just call me JP or Matthew. Either way is fine. But yeah, I got brought into the cop block scene through Pete Eyre because he was present at one of my hearings, and that's how I met the Free Keene folks. Though I've been a pretty big critic of a lot of their stuff and ways, and they've been critical of mine. But I try to remain peaceful and try to keep the aggression towards people down to a bare minimum and try to understand people rather than grouch at them as much as they do. Yeah.
Well, we all make good the enemy of perfect, or perfect the enemy of good.
Right.
I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah, I try not to judge people too harshly because I have no idea what their backgrounds are or what got them to that point. So I try to have a lot of understanding, and even if I dislike somebody, I'll still go out and do activism with them without any issues. Like I can put away my personal feelings for the greater good, which I've proven hundreds of times before. Because there's a few people I do not like because their character just doesn't show. They just have a lot of anger and malice in their hearts, even though free staters and I don't want to collectivize, but the ones that I've been around, there's been some great people, and there's been some, ideals of non-aggression principle, or what they call the NAP, which I believe they're more aggressive online and become aggressors online with the passive aggressiveness, and it's just filled with a lot of anger and hate, especially when they disagree with you. They have to reply with a lot of hatred behind it.
So I should clarify for the uninitiated. He's talking about when he talks about Free Keene and Free Staters. To the audience that may not know, Free Keene is a libertarian group in Keene, New Hampshire, and Free Staters are sort of a libertarian group in New Hampshire, and they're they are sort of a liberty migration. So people migrate to New Hampshire from all over the country. That's kind of what Free Staters are. So it's a little bit different from just a political party or something like that. But anyway, so yeah, of course we all have checkered relations with some people. I mean, considering the large number of people we're dealing with now, I think it's now about 5,000 Free Staters in New Hampshire, depending on how you count them. So,
and I get along with most and not. Just the ones that aren't, that I don't get along with, have a bigger voice. They have a bigger voice online, but I've been a pretty big critic of some of the inconsistencies and hypocrisies when it comes to their own ideals. Like, they rather talk crap online rather than actually doing. But that's probably my most gripe of those two things. But for the most part, I get along with the ones that I get along with. I still get along with, and I've never had any bad issues with them. I mean, I had my ins and outs with people just like everybody else does, but I try to patch it up. And I have done that, and them as well. But as far as me belonging to a group, if you were to label me for people that need a label, I'd probably be classified as kind of like a medarchist / constitutionalist. That I actually believe in using the state but I actually believe in using the state against the state, you know, with their own rules and their own regulations. So I'm not against calling a cop on a cop.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I did want to. Speaking of that, I did want to get to. You had reached out to me and suggested that we talk, which is always fun. And I assume that the reason you had reached out to me was to update me on a couple of your lawsuits against police in New Hampshire. Is that your main topic that you wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, and a courthouse. I'm suing the 8th District Court Kane Family Division.
Okay, so how many lawsuits total?
Just 2.
Okay, so one's against cops and one's against family court?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with the cop thing. I believe that I probably called into talk radio about 2 years ago to update them about a situation that had happened to you, and I remember telling them what had happened to you, but I don't remember what I told them. So update me on what happened to you a few years ago that I think you're currently suing over.
Yeah, I was on the way to it was mid-March of 2017. I was actually going to an FSP meeting at a place they called the Quill for the Free State Project to gear up for a Pork Fest. If anybody doesn't know, that's a gathering they have every single year where liberty-minded people get together and camp out and have guest speakers and keynotes and all that stuff. We're actually going to a preparation meeting for that, and I was with a gentleman called David Juris, who's no longer around. Kind of like fell off the radar, but I saw a bunch of cars unmarked pulled over a young black man on Main Street in Manchester, New Hampshire. So I got out and started video recording that encounter. In fact, it's on my YouTube channel, on Cop Chasers YouTube, and I believe I can actually look it up right now. I changed the name to make it shorter fairly recently, so. But anyways, this unmarked detective, basically singled me out while I was kind of walking by some other pedestrians there. And it kind of pushed me all the way down to the end of the road. So he chest bumped me a couple times in that encounter, and literally called other uniform cops to keep me there for a good 22 minutes.
And now, if I may ask, at this point, were you already recording, and did you have a light on?
I was recording as soon as I jumped out of the van.
And did your camera have like a light on it?
No, it didn't need a light. What do you mean a light?
Yeah, were you illuminating the scene in any way?
No, I didn't illuminate the scene. Didn't need it. Everything was clearly visual. Like there's lights everywhere. It's in the city, so
yeah.
Unlike some of the back roads where you can't really see much, but I do have infrared anyway. But yeah, it's clearly seen. It's an older video. It's a popular one at that. Very popular video.
How many hits does it have?
I believe it's JP gets assaulted by Detective Douche Brown. That's what it's labeled as.
And what did you determine his name actually was, or was that his name?
It's Detective Aaron Brown.
Oh, okay. Okay, so yes, I've heard that name, and I forget what I associate him with, but it's something bad.
There's a few stories. So I filed the complaint, like it's on the video. I actually made the call while I was on the scene. I put the camera down. It was literally about 7 degrees out. I'm not even exaggerating. It was very cold that night. While I was surrounded by uniform cops. I thought I was going to get caged that night, but I didn't. So I filed the complaint. They wanted me to come in and do a formal complaint, which I did. I was accompanied by Chris Penguin, who was a co-host of Free Talk Live. He actually later on bailed me out of that whole situation for real, but he was present, video recording the initial complaint in-house, and that was Sergeant Sanders. who is Aaron Brown's immediate boss. I also have 3 videos linking the investigation that I prompted, the complaint investigation, with them sitting down with his union rep, Sergeant Sanders, and Aaron Brown. I have that on CD and I have it on video. It's Crooked Cop Part 1, 2, and 3 on Cop Chasers. So I filed the complaint. We left, and about 2 or 3 months later, we went to Rochester. Again, I was with Chris Penguin. Went to Rochester to do an ambush interview on some of the cops there who were suspected of like taking drugs off people and then never turning them into evidence, or something to that effect. But I didn't even get to that point. So we saw a traffic stop at Friendly's, in front of Friendly's in Rochester, New Hampshire. I got out, and the cops were acting really weird. They were like holding their guns, came up to me and said I had a warrant out for my arrest. I didn't know what the heck it was about. So they transferred me from there to Epping, and a Manchester police officer picked me up in Epping. So I went to the Manchester Police Department. They booked me. I was there for about maybe 30 minutes, and Chris Penguin paid the $40 bail fee. That was before the bail reform started, so you had to pay the $40. And then I looked on the bail report, or the paperwork they give you, and it said that I have to stay away from victim Aaron Brown. I actually still have that.
Okay, so they arrested you. Did they arrest you for being around Aaron Brown, or just for being?
They arrested me for false swearing and filing a false report. So basically, they arrested me for filing a complaint on Aaron Brown.
Okay, all right. So what did they say? So that was the thing that I remember now calling talk radio about, saying, "Hey, listen, there's this guy who's been arrested because he filed a complaint against Manchester PD. He was arrested in Rochester for it." And as I recall, I was calling WTPL about this around 2017, and that was this TV. That was a radio show that recently went off the air, but it was a local radio show. And, you know, they're authoritarians, but they'll let you talk, right? They let me on the air and let me change the subject and everything. They're pretty accommodating, and it's a show that I really miss. But yeah, what their reaction was, well, this guy's just making trouble or whatnot. But I remember talking about that, and I remember that that was what surprised me, was that someone would be arrested for filing a police report. The police can't be very objective about whether or not you falsified a report against them, right? They've got a pretty strong motive to decide that you falsified the report. So to be able to arrest you as well for them thinking that you falsified it, it seems like a kind of a conflict of interest.
Well, the thing is, they were looking at it as a criminal thing, and I think they did that purposely for malicious prosecution. I was filing a complaint because he violated my right to record. That was my initial complaint. He pushed me at an unreasonable distance, like literally about 100 yards away from the traffic stop itself. And if you watch the video, it's clearly he was in the wrong. And under Glick versus Cunniff, Simon Glick was maybe 10 feet, and the First Circuit Court of Appeals said that was reasonable. So I think 100 yards is way unreasonable.
You can't. The main thing is that half of what's going on is the audio. The video of something is only half of it.
Yeah. Both audio and video are there. It's clearly all there.
Yeah, but what I mean is that if they're keeping you 100 yards away, they're keeping you from recording what is said.
So basically, they arrested me for filing a false complaint, and I was represented by John Meyer, who actually won the New Hampshire Supreme Court case, Manchester versus Allard. In that case, the New Hampshire Supreme Court actually stated that in protest, you're even allowed to lie during a complaint. And that was one. And that's why he took the case pro bono. And we didn't even get that far. So I think it was almost a year into, I think it was like November of 2018, or was it August? Yeah, it was August 13th, I think, was my trial date. I'll have to look on the TV because it was the week Detective Murphy and Aaron Brown got fired. Was the week of my trial, believe it or not.
Oh, so Aaron Brown has been fired?
He was fired that week, yes.
In 2018.
Yeah, actually, I can look it up really
Now,
quick.
is that the cop that the chief is trying to keep him from getting rehired?
Oh, it gets juicier than that. It gets it gets way juicier than that. So, let me look here. It is on YouTube. It's fairly easy to look up. I can look at the date real quick. So he basically got fired. And the allegation was he was using a CI, stating that he was going to violate her probation and get DCYF to take her kids if she doesn't do sexual favors for her. I guess she was a very good-looking CI, and him and Detective Murphy, who had nothing to do with my case, but they work in the same division, were basically raping this poor woman for over a year. And they lost a lawsuit over it with an undisclosed amount because of, the victim parameters around it. They didn't release a whole lot of that, just the fact that they settled out of court. So that very week, they no-prossed my case and dismissed it completely. I think June of this year, the union leader came out with unredacted records of the investigation against him and found a lot of racist texts that he made to his wife on a department phone. That story came out like literally just months ago, and then the arbitration period he got in the paper again just a couple months ago because he's trying to get his job back, and the arbitrator actually said they have to hire him back. They're refusing to do so, but they have to pay him back pay, all because he's a rapist and a racist.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, this. Can you imagine a Walmart employee getting treated this well?
It blows me away. It absolutely blows me away. But the thing is, Attorney John Meyer requested a full file discovery. He wanted notes, who we talked to, call logs, everything for weeks. From the night my incident happened all the way to my arrest. And there was some inconsistencies on his whereabouts. So the call logs at the station had him at one area, and I guess the GPS on their phones, they have like this protective thing to keep track of all their police officers in case they're in trouble, whatever. Didn't match the call logs, and they found out he was going over this girl's house. And that's when it was actually my case, inadvertently my case, that blew open that whole, the whole thing of him having committing sexual assault. It was actually the prosecutor's office, some intern, that actually found the discrepancies because they wanted an airtight case,
Yeah. What's interesting...
So he got nailed for it, and they started looking into it, and then the female's lawyer got involved, and he said, yeah, she's been complaining about this for months, and I guess he had like multiple reports to the police department. Police department were ignoring them, or not seeing the emails or whatever, allegedly, and that's how the whole thing, started. But they don't want this new chief does not want to hire him back. He made it very clear he does not want this guy nowhere near his offices, the building, himself.
Yeah, it's amazing if you stop and think about it. The New Hampshire system is basically the least bad system in America, and it is in turn better also than most police systems. But even when the police system wants to do the right thing, even America's least bad system, the New Hampshire system, stops the police from doing the right thing. And imagine how worse it is in the other states.
Well, it was the union. These unions protect these cops in a way where it's so uncanny. Like I cannot believe that an arbitrator, knowing all the facts about this guy, would rule in his favor. Yeah, let's put him back on the street, put a badge back on him, and let him commit sexual assault and be a racist. Like, all this is not alleged. This has all been founded.
Right. This is one of these things where this cop has the entire Earth pulling against him, right? And he's still escaped into space because he's hitting on all the cylinders, right? All of the things that Americans just hate, and the rest of the world hates too. Rape and racism. Those two things are like the next to child assault. That's the stuff that humans hate the most these days. And he's able to do those things apparently and get away with it.
Yeah, the media information on this is very strange because it was actually a YouTube comment on one of my videos that turned me on to this arbitration thing. And then I started looking it up. It's like on the third page of this, and a little article like this big, like really small on it, and it's no media play on this at all. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, this guy literally gets sued. They settle out of court because he raped some chick for a matter of like 6 to 7 months. And then they actually found tangible racist remarks on his phone. And they're not saying anything about it, like, and he arrests people for, complaining on him.
Well, in fairness to the news, at least the union, I feel like I've seen some union leader articles about it. I was familiar with the name and all that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You can, if you choose to dig in, you sometimes find things like this that really are, kind of, they feel like The Shield, or it feels like. Something you'd see in a TV series or whatnot. But it happens even in New Hampshire. And the problem is, it seems like that people are just not willing to go public quickly, and because they let something start to become secret and let themselves be intimidated into silence, they suffer more and more over time.
Right. So, my case, the case number is 216-2020 CV00838. It's Matthew J. Phillips versus City of Manchester, Aaron Brown, Manchester Police Department. I'm asking for a claim amount of $100,000. Basically, I'll just read it real quick in summary. On March 2nd at 7:15 p.m. 2017, I was attempting a video recording of a traffic stop and was illegally hindered by then Detective Brown from doing so by force and threat of arrest along with physical touching. Number 4, it stated in my complaint on March 2nd, 7:35 p.m. 2007, I was held at an unreasonable location by force under the direction of Aaron Brown with illegal intimidation by 2 uniformed officers about 75 to 100 yards from the actual stop. March 17th, I filed a complaint on Aaron Brown and then was arrested for filing that complaint on 5/21/2017. Charges were later dropped in August of 2018 due to Detective Brown being fired from the allegation of sexual assault and racist texts and unbecoming behavior. And an extra punitive $50,000 for clear multiple violation of my rights to undue traumatic stress and severe anxiety and fear, which has hindered activism and media work in the Manchester area, including other agencies using bully tactics, knowing I had an active case. This is something I wanted to touch on real quick because as someone that goes after police, I do not have fear of pretty much anything that they can do or what they're going to do, because I know I'm not doing anything wrong and I never overstep the line of like threatening them in any way. I usually stay within my boundary of what the law allows me to do. But during this thing, cops were like, what are you going to lie about me? Because if you're going to do that, I'll arrest you right now. Like, their balls grew big during this situation. And I was getting bullied by them. Like, they were getting in my face. Like, go ahead, file a complaint on me and see what happens. Like, accosting me. Which has never happened before up until this point.
They were doing this during the March recording attempt in 2017?
No. They were doing it throughout the whole year. Off and on throughout the whole year. Like, say, I'll get out of the car in New Boston, New Hampshire, and see a traffic stop. Normally, they'll just go in their cruiser and leave. They had brass balls during this time. They were, like, literally getting in my face.
They were puffing their chests at you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Like, accosting me like they wanted to arrest me again. Because they were setting a precedent. Manchester PD set a precedent. Like, okay, now we can find an excuse to arrest these goombas for video recording us, is the rhetoric I was getting back from them. So basically the second page is about the initial complaint with Saunders. It is in my strong belief that Sergeant Sanders, who took the complaint and interviewed, is his longtime friend, Aaron Brown, conspired to purposely violate my civil rights under State v. Allard, New Hampshire Supreme Court, to push an arrest for filing a said complaint. During the interview Sergeant Sanders had with Detective Brown on transcript CD, he mentioned he is trained to deal with people like me with cameras since they feel they have some authority over me, and stated in this that he wants charges pressed if it's founded that he did nothing wrong. So basically... he thinks maybe you don't have any authority over him. Sounds like. That's exactly what he said on the CD. It's a good listen, and it should wake people up in New Hampshire, because he said he was trained to deal with people like me. I want to know what that means. I have a 91A filed for that. I want to know what that training is. That would be interesting to have a video of that training going on, wouldn't it? Yeah, well, I have the video of him saying that to Sanders during their transcript that I got through my discovery. I mean, other than that, they don't allow the internal investigations to get let out. I think it was by accident that I have it. But I put it on my YouTube channel regardless, whether they like it or not, because they don't have an expectation of privacy. So, it's funny with Manchester PD. I used to live in Bedford and I used to live in Manchester, and I lived next door to the chief, right? The Manchester police chief when I lived in Bedford. The one, I guess, who was chief until roughly 2016 or 2015, and we almost became friends. And later on, there was another. I forget his name now. There was another chief that took office maybe around 2015, and I think he left office in 2019. And both Mara and his successor seemed like really relatively decent guys for police chiefs. And if this stuff's happening under them, you can imagine the craziness that would be happening with a really malicious police chief, right? Well, I met the police chief, the new one, at the BLM march this past summer when I went with Free Talk Live's Ian Freeman, and whatever his name is this year, Nobody, Rich Paul, whatever he calls himself. He went, another gentleman that I can't remember his name went. I was talking to the chief there for about 5 minutes. He was actually there on site, and he's Puerto Rican, and I really like him. He actually knew who I was right off the bat. He knew about the Aaron Brown situation right off the bat. Like, I didn't even need to give him any info to, jog his memory or anything. He knew right off the bat. And I haven't done cop chasing there probably since this actually went down. But I named a few cases in line 8 and put, it's in my strong belief that this malicious prosecution by Manchester Police and City's Prosecutor's Office violated my clear rights to record and file a complaint under Glick v. Cunneth, USCTAP, Garek vs. Began, U.S. Court AP, Texas vs. Hill, U.S. Supreme Court, and State of New Hampshire vs. Allen, New Hampshire Supreme Court. People don't realize in the Garek case, there was actually a decision that the First Court of Appeals made in Garek vs. Began. If people don't know, Carla Garek got arrested for recording a Ware Police Department case, and it was Officer Began that arrested her. He tried to claim qualified and sovereign immunity, and they basically, the U.S. It settled before the answer of the U.S. Court of Appeals actually gave their answer, but they still gave their answer anyway. And it said that he wasn't under qualified immunity because it violated a fundamental right. So we can sue the cops in New England if they violate a clear right. So that's why Aaron Brown is listed, and he's not even a police officer anymore anyway. He's a regular citizen. At least, you know, he could probably fight the fact that the arbitrator says he can get his license back and whatever, but either way.
JP, if I may ask, what are some things that people can do to help with your situation? What do you have court hearings coming up that people can attend, or what can they do?
Well, I have to serve them. I literally just got the service paperwork like a day ago. It's going to cost me $160 because there's 3 of them, and you have to pay for 2 times a piece in case they don't get them the first time. But the case heading is Matthew J. Phillips versus Aaron Brown et al. There's 3 defendants. So when I get them served, I'll get a court date. I'm not sure with the coronavirus going on if it's going to be a face-to-face hearing or it's going to be on WebEx, that's what they use. If you want to see or be present during the hearing or protest against any of these douchebags, I would love to go in front of Aaron Brown's house and protest there, but I don't know if that would be safe. He'll probably end up shooting us.
There would probably be some risk associated with that. And if you can't protest at the court hearing, then I guess that just leaves the police department on a garden variety day.
But this is a new administration. I tactically basically figured I should file now because the city can't stand this guy right now. And
right.
Part of my relief, which I talked to a couple lawyers, I actually put in here in item A, which is I believe page 2 of 1 in my complaint. I said a restraining order against Aaron Brown for his well-documented retaliatory tactics noted in released text and arresting folks exercising their rights, using and abusing his use of power, the people that people trust him with. That Aaron Brown be removed of any of his duties that put him in a position to abuse, intimidate, or illegally go against a citizen. Under the 8th article of the New Hampshire State Constitution, all officers and magistrates are accountable to the public at all times, not an arbitrator, not a union, and not an employer to the public, and ask this honorable court to grant this request.
Hey, JP, I'm sorry to interrupt, but would your kids maybe be able to operate in a different room for a little while or so? Because they're making so much noise, I think it may be distracting for the viewers.
Yeah, that might be downstairs. I think mine are in 2 separate rooms. Hold on a second.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Let's see, I'll try to fill the gap here with some kind of...
I'm back.
Feedback, all right. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry. It's one of the benefits of being a single dad alone.
Yeah. Well, it's a good sound, but not necessarily not necessarily in the background. So
yeah, no, I hear you. So Yeah, so I'm asking for a restraining order on him.
On
and him
Aaron
to be
Brown?
removed of all duties. Yep.
So wait, was he approaching you or something?
No, he assaulted me during that stop.
Oh yeah, but has he done anything since he's been fired?
Not that I know of, no.
Oh, okay.
But he's because of those texts, I guess he ruined somebody's house. According to a union leader in the text, he said he broke through a lamp and tore up this guy's glass bureau because he refused to let him in and something like that. So he's got retaliatory behavior.
I tell you what, all these people, all these helpless people out there that don't get video, what is it with that?
I don't know. And the ones that did, I mean, that gentleman that just won that lawsuit against the two detectives in Manchester that he was secretly recording them, and they were there for drugs. They arrested him for secretly recording them, and he won a lawsuit because he got arrested for recording them.
Oh, that's interesting. So the Manchester police have made an arrest of a person for recording them, huh?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. I believe it was 2018. Well, I guess his arrest happened in 2017 also, but his lawsuit happened in 2018, and he won. Again, they settled out of court. The reason why I don't like the whole fact of settling out of court is because the facts of the case don't get brought up in trial.
Yeah.
You signed a non-disclosure, and what they did is totally, and that's why they want you to settle. They don't want the truth in an evidentiary hearing to come out to light. Like me, this is my life's work. Like we want these dirty cops off the street, bully tactics, out of here. We don't want like all this corruption going on. I'm not going to settle. They can throw a $50,000 check at me all they want, but I want this to go to trial, whether they like it or not. I mean, technically, I don't really need the money, so it's not like I'm this money monger. But they're going to try to settle, and I'm not going to do it. I want to go to trial because I want to cross-examine these douchebags. I want people to know on record how bad these guys are. Because in discovery, I'm going to file a full-page discovery, and they're going to have to give me everything that they have on this guy, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, well, sometimes I think, it's not necessarily that there's something wrong with police. It's more that there's something wrong with monopolies, right?
Well, they've done it. They did it to Chris Penguin. They arrested him for recording too, and he just won a suit.
Good. Yeah, I did demonstrate in front of the police department against his arrest. I guess back in 2017. And
I was there that night at that DUI checkpoint, and that was crazy. Like
yeah.
they were making up things right off the top of his head, and he wasn't even doing any of them. This is a sidewalk, and oh yeah, this is a sidewalk because I'm calling it a sidewalk. Like literally, Manchester has a hair across their butt, and they need to know that the public is over them and not the other way around. For some reason, they think they can do whatever they want, when they want, and how they want, and that's not how New Hampshire is supposed to be.
Yeah,
that's not how this is written.
Well, and for those out there who are considering whether to videotape or not when interacting with police, it seemed like for me, as someone who's probably interacted with Manchester police about as much as you have, maybe a little less. But if you inform them that you're recording, and you don't dig deep into their system, you just record what's happening to you on the sidewalk, or or whatnot. That actually seems to be pretty safe, and MPD has never really. They've never arrested me, and they've never interfered with me that much, as long as I'm just doing that. Right, but it seems like when people try to dig a little bit more, or they try to get video secretly, their level of risk goes up at that point.
Well, it's the retaliation of orders. They want to be followed whether it's the law or not. And in Chris's case, they were telling him to do something, and he was refusing to do it, and the cop just raged out on him, throwing a bunch of laws at him, and arrested him for a bunch of stuff. Like in my case, I wasn't moving quick enough, and I was protesting the whole entire way. I did what you did. I was walking in a backwards motion, like how you did a few years back, and they didn't even like that. They didn't like how fast you were going. They determined on their own and made up their own laws that you were violating a direct order because of your speed of how you were walking. And of course, the judge didn't agree with that, and you ended up, that case got, you won that case. But in my case, it was virtually the same thing. Like, if you watch the video, I was literally walking at the same time other 5 people were walking, and he literally said he didn't see them, even though he walked right by them. So immediately you can tell in the video that I was screwed. I was screwed. I couldn't record that stop if my life depended on it. They wanted to hide something, and that's how this ghost unit works. And I have another video against that same unit on Beach Street in 2016. And the head of their unit gets out of the SUV, and he literally told me he's going to arrest me if I don't. I have it on video. They're going to arrest me for not registering my bicycle. Like, I had to register my bicycle.
Really?
Yeah, and then they said if you cross the street, we're going to arrest you for that too. I'm like, that's a violation level offense. It's not arrestable. He didn't like that, and he peeled out, flipped me off, and just kept going. That's how that's Manchester PD right there.
Wow.
Now I'm not the most unreasonable person when it comes to cops. Like, people think I am, but I'm really not. I understand that 90% of the things they go through on a daily basis is social. I know it's taxing mentally, and I don't think it's right that these guys are working 3 14-hour shifts in a row. Like, I felt bad about the cop that I caught sleeping, that Dean Wright in Winchester a couple summers ago. He had, literally, he's the only guy on, and he worked 3 13-hour shifts in a row throughout the night, and it was 2:30 a.m. when I caught him sleeping in his cruiser. In that video, you could see I was getting a little nervous. I actually called 911 thinking something was physically wrong with the guy, because I was knocking on his window and kicking his door and having a flashlight in his face, and he was unresponsive. So I'm not a cop hater. I think they're trained wrong. I think they're taught wrong, and I don't think they have anything to do with community policing. They're combat oriented. They're training these guys to be street soldiers without having the mental capacity to do so. I think they're wound up tight. There's a reason why the police have the highest domestic violence rate in the whole entire country for any employer, and the suicide level is really, really high. It's because cities like that, they're literally going. I don't understand how a human being can see wrong thing after wrong thing after wrong thing, where they get in trained memory, and how people like me, videographers, can't expect them not to look at you with a preconception. They need constant counseling. I think they need an outlet. I don't think they, with special forces in the military, you serve a few months overseas. You have to do stateside, and you have to go through a mental health eval to get cleared to actually get redeployed. They should do that with cops. I mean, these guys are so mentally wound up. I don't think they can handle the job anymore. They first start the job smiling and happy about what they're doing, and then 2 years later they're cynical as heck. They hate their job. They don't like anybody. Oh, geez, we gotta go to Beach Street again. With that type of passive aggressive attitude, and then they end up breaking the law because they hate what they do.
Well, also
way to combat that.
They're funded wrong, and they have no real competition. The taxpayer, the fact that the taxpayer has to fund them if you force people to fund something, then don't expect that thing to be very accountable or very good.
It's true. It's very true. That's a whole other. That's the political side of it. Yeah. And when they're basing cops as their main revenue source for like cities like Keene, I mean, they make $38,000 a month on college kids, just from noise complaints and open containers. And people say, oh, the money doesn't go. Yeah, 65% goes right back into the city of Keene.
Yeah, and again, those college kids are helpless, They don't know to record. They don't know their legal rights. They're just putty. They're putty.
Like a lot of them live in Maine and Connecticut. They're not going to come back during a vacation to go to a court date to fight the ticket. So their parents just pay the $500, fine and, be done with it. But, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. They're making a lot, and the landlords here are making a lot of money on the college kids too. But as far as Keene goes, the cops have changed here. They don't mess with videographers here at all. They don't mouth off. They're trained to just leave us alone, get in the car as fast as possible, clear the stop, and don't engage. That's what they're told. Basically, what I was told by one of the new cops is they basically tell them, if you start talking or having a debate with them, it's going to give them a video. Just leave them be.
Yeah.
I like that. I like it. They should just do their job, be accountable, and go. A lot of people don't know this, but one of my 13 of my videos actually helped them. I've been subpoenaed at least 13 times. Well, technically it was 5 times in one night because of the Pumpkin Fest, but 13 times in all where, it ended up hurting, who was punching the cop or whatever. My video ended up not exonerating them at all. In one particular time with Corrigan, some girl filed a complaint, said he groped her at a traffic stop, and my video didn't show him touching her at all. They sued the guy, and it ended up getting thrown out as fast as it started because the video showed him he didn't even touch the girl. So, the accountability goes both ways with recording.
Yeah, I think it was what Jim Rickards was saying. You can fight against the government all day long, but you really got to have an alternative solution to get anywhere. And, for me, the alternative solution with the Manchester Police Department in particular is just to have, probably to have 2 police departments and make sure that neither of them are funded through taxation. That's probably the solution. It's probably not very realistic in the short term, but to bring competition into play and to take the taxpayer money out of it, that will give you a police department that you can believe in. It might give you 2 or 3 that you can believe in. That would at least perform up to the level of Target or up to the level of Starbucks. It's not perfect, but at least does the job. And that's probably the solution. But I don't hear anybody talking about that, and it doesn't seem like we're any closer to that. Even after all this rioting and peaceful protest and anger at the police, it doesn't seem like we're any closer to that kind of solution.
Well, legislation most states adopted a kind of like an occupational memorandum, if you will, for the police to occupy and be the only ones that can do stuff. And statute after statute, it says this can happen. Only a police officer can do blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
There's laws put in place by legislations in every state that make them the ultimate authority that acts on the state's behalf, which is not fair because now they can just determine themselves to be at no wrong every time they do something wrong. Either way you go. Like a lot of these police departments or cities that have civilian review boards, nothing ever happens. Even if the review board says, oh, they did something wrong, the union ends up protecting them and they're back on the street after 3 days, suspension or whatever. So
Yeah.
they don't really do much. If you give power to a civilian review board and the legislation says, okay, if the review board says blah, 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 and you're dismissed, whether you like it or not. Now they have these union arbitration contracts with the state where now this guy might actually get his job back. He actually might already had, because the arbitrator said, already agreed that he should get his job back. So I'm not sure what Manchester, what follow-up story is behind that, because of remote learning and stuff, punching me in the face, and, I turned into a full-blown, full-time teacher on a daily basis because of COVID. It's very hard to keep up with, like, every bit of activism that I used to be in. But, yeah, I hope I win. I hope the turnout is good. If I can get as much info out there as possible. And not only that, for people to meet the real me, instead of hearing some preconception from some hate group about me, because, I'm a very peaceful person. I'm not a very hateful person.
Well, and it's hard for me to be objective about you because you're one of the few people that's ever gone and followed up at a location where something bad happened to me. Like there was that place, that time where I got ejected I got ejected from a trail because I was taking pictures of a jail or a prison. And so you went, after I got ejected from that spot, you went to that exact same spot and went and did a video on the same spot just because you were angry about what happened to me. And I really appreciate that kind of follow-up.
And there should be more of that. I mean, there should be more of that with multiple activists. And it's weird because I did way more than what you did. I was like, yelling at the girls and talking to them. And it's funny, too, because that warrant out for my arrest happened right before that. So I actually had a warrant at Manchester at that point. And I was talking to that police officer for a little while. He was nice. I caught him in a lie like 3 times, but it was a decent conversation at the end of it. The Goffstown cop was pretty nice, and we had a pretty good conversation. But yeah, that was ridiculous. Like, you just was saying, let my girls go, or let the girls go or something, and in a sign, and I'm here like touching the fence and swearing at the lady that came to the fence telling me I need to move, and they didn't even do that. They didn't even file a trespass order on me.
Right. I think you helped get them more and more used to the fact that they can be recorded, because they reacted to me with lights and sirens when I was just holding a sign and walking down a trail. But with you were cussing them out and and everything, and they reacted more calmly.
Well, you got to understand too, they're combat oriented. If you approach a bunch of bully soldiers with a calm demeanor, they're like a pack of wolves. They'll feed on it and they aggress on the fear. I'm not quite understanding what that is. Like, if you see the video of when me and Ethan Glover got pulled over, and his demeanor was soft, they were all over him like flies on crap.
Really?
I was like very kind of hostile in protest, and they literally left me alone. It was extremely strange on how they responded to either one of us. They fed directly on the weak person, and they jumped all over it.
Well, of course, I know Ethan, and he doesn't actually come off as weak. He just comes off as calm. On the other hand, I feel like I tend to be in the calm category. I probably don't come off as I don't probably come off as nearly as weak as the average person that they're interacting with. But I feel like I'm sort of a cop whisperer. Like I'm either radioactive, or they're legitimately friendly toward me. But for whatever reason, they don't seem to bother me that much.
They did arrest you for walking backwards, though.
Well, if you think about it, sorry, go ahead.
They did go after you too. It's like almost like the first time I ever seen you or met you, when I think Joe Biden. I think it was Joe Biden that came to town visiting Keene State College. We were on the green. I was holding a sign showing how many deaths happened in Iraq and in Afghanistan.
That's right.
And I was dressed. I literally just got back from a paintball game, so I was dressed in fatigues and combat boots, looking like a terrorist. They didn't even come up to me and ask me anything. But you, they ran your name, they took your license, and you have a press pass on. You have cameras.
That's right. Yeah, they did treat me pretty carefully that day. Yeah, we were both standing, I guess, in the spot where he would be driving straight towards us.
Yeah, they drove right by.
Yeah, so they probably figured we both had a line of sight, so they would give us more caution or treat us more cautiously or do more to us.
They didn't even say hi to me.
Interesting. Yeah, so you had the same line of sight that I did. You posed the same degree of physical risk, all things being equal, and they didn't mess with you, did they?
I thought that was excessively strange.
Yeah.
I look like this terrorist with like old fatigues on, and they run you, but not me.
Yeah, interesting.
That actually was one of the biggest premises of Garrett Ian calling me a Fed. They left you alone because you're a federal agent. So oh, whatever.
Okay, I didn't know that he called you that. Okay, well,
he was big. He was big on that with me. Probably still.
Well, I don't know. As long as I figure, if you are a federal agent, I figure we might as well get some use out of you.
Right. Well, he basically based his premise because I don't smoke weed or drink. You're too clean. You're too clean to be an activist.
Well, feds drink.
You gotta be a Fed.
Feds can drink. But yeah, speaking of Garrett Ian, that's another case where somebody, where he sort of used the system, to kind of go in and question. He went in and he went into City Hall or something like that and had some kind of private hearing or whatnot. He wasn't supposed to record it. Maybe he didn't record it. I don't know. But they later on they came to him and stopped him on his bike and seized his.
They took his camera. It was the then Lieutenant DeRusso, Joe DeRusso, who later became the head of Troop C in Keene for the New Hampshire State Police. He retired after 1 year. After 1 year being the head there, I guess he was a state cop over 25. He became a detective in Swansea, and then fairly recently retired from Swansea, and now he's the public, what do they call it? He's the director for the Public Works Department.
Oh, okay.
Literally, a couple of days ago, he got appointed that position.
Aaron Russo's still he's at Public Works in Swansea, huh?
Yeah.
I need to.
So
maybe I should go by. Maybe I should go by their office and try to ambush interview him. Because I've always been wanting to talk to him about that incident with Garrett Ian, but I didn't really go into detail about what happened with Garrett Ian. He was accused. He reported to the public everything that he remembered from his meeting with the city officials inside City Hall. And then if I may finish, And ultimately what happened was the police came and seized his equipment later on the street because they accused him of failing to get his facts wrong. They said that he was too accurate in his reporting on the meeting with let me finish, the meeting with the city officials, and he must have illegally recorded it, or he couldn't have been so accurate.
Right. I remember that. He basically got arrested or charged because of his memory.
Well, I mean, allegedly. I don't know. For all I know, he did record it, but where's the proof, right? And they didn't find it on his camera, that's for sure.
No, he got his camera back, though.
But that video of him being accosted and having his camera seized, That, I reran that on my channel, and it must have gotten, 80 or 90,000 hits. So I think we win.
Yeah, you got his camera back and no charges were filed. So, I mean.
And I do mean we. Despite the fact that there may be infighting sometimes between you or Garrett and other, there's always going to be infighting, but ultimately it's us and them. We're the ones that don't receive tax dollars, and they're the ones that do.
Well, the thing that I don't like the most is how someone can preconceive and have a preconception and put you in like this category because you don't trust a certain belief or idea. Because you ask questions, they think you're objecting to whatever they feel like they need to protect or stand up for. In that respect, it's being a libertarian. And I've had my objections with a lot of Ian stuff too. Like they're against all this stuff, but yet he'll ban people off private pages on whatever groups that he's involved in. He'll ban them, which I think is authoritarian. An authoritarian bans and punishes and retaliates in a manner like that. So it's like little things like that. And when I voice it, they don't like it, and I'm like, well, I'm calling you out on the inconsistencies. One of the reasons why I keep pulling away from the whole idea of libertarians is because you guys are not showing me that you're anything different. I see bans, I see retaliation, I see whatever force that you have or you think you have, you use. And that's what statists do. I'm not shown.
You're probably overgeneralizing there, and I should probably go back to, and I was overgeneralizing too when I said that we don't receive tax dollars. I don't receive tax dollars. There are probably libertarians who do, and it would be better if they didn't. That's probably not super consistent.
That's not good collectivize. Yeah, I didn't mean collectivize.
By and large, but all the cops are receiving tax dollars. That's for sure. But ultimately, I think when it comes to that censorship question and the personality conflict question, we have to keep our focus on an idea rather than on human individuals, because the idea that you don't commit acts of aggression is solid. It's not affected when someone commits an act of aggression and they're claiming to be a libertarian. That does not affect the idea. You shouldn't commit acts of aggression.
Well, I haven't really seen anybody do any physical harm to property or people. Well, actually, I actually have. Not to name names, but I was at the Keene Activist Center and I saw a certain female there literally attack somebody with a butter knife and bite them. But that's what happens when you get alcohol mixed with whatever freedom recreational stuff they want to do. I don't want to give away too much without incriminating anybody, but it happened years ago. But
well, and there's a lot more to answer for. There are a lot of free staters who have committed acts of aggression that may not be directly physically violent, but they've gone into the State House chamber and voted in favor of minimum wage, or voted in favor of death penalty, or voted in favor of this or that, and they're claiming to be some kind of a libertarian. Now maybe they did it, for strategic reasons that would, they knew that the thing wouldn't pass or whatever. But still, if you're voting for the friggin' death penalty, that's an act of F-bombing aggression, if there ever was one. And it's not an isolated type of case. There's all kinds of cases where free staters and alleged New Hampshire libertarians are doing things that they're forcing taxpayers to underwrite their activity. And it would be better to have a few more purists, maybe a few less people being holier than thou, but a few more people actually living the life of zero aggression against other people.
Well, living a life of zero aggression and being peaceful are two separate things.
They are, yeah. I didn't say I was against defending your house. I just said I'm against acts of aggression.
So no, I'm talking about that. Not necessarily like physical stuff happening to your property or anything, but a lot of people that promote the NAP or the NAP or the non-aggression principle that are really diehard activists, they're not very peaceful. Not everybody, but there's a large group that aren't very peaceful. They scream and yell, say mean things.
Well, you can scream and yell all day long without committing an act of aggression.
Yeah, but it's the peaceful aspect that will get people together to do good stuff. If you act peaceful along with the non-aggressive behavior, because I think even online people can be massively aggressive and they're aggressing towards you in a way where they're not actually physically touching you, but calling you an effing retard.
No, that is not an act of aggression, JP. That is speech.
It's speech, but it's aggressive speech. But that's
a thing can be
That's the debate that I have.
A thing can be aggressive without being an act of aggression, right? So you can engage in aggressive investing or aggressive basketball playing. That's not an act of aggression, so it doesn't cross the line. When you're aggressively posting, but you're not committing an act of aggression, that's just speech.
Yeah, but when it's directed out of hate.
No, that's thought. Don't fall in. Come on, JP. Don't be better than this. Don't fall into the thought crime trap.
Oh, I'm not. It's more than that, because I base it out of a foundation. If someone has a foundation of hate, they are able to physically hurt you. And 99.9%, it's not just free thought. So if I'm sitting there and I'm talking to somebody, for an example, and I misspell couch, and all of a sudden, oh, you're an effing retard, you're not worth talking to. I'm like, well, talk to me then. Come meet me. Oh, you don't want me to meet you. You know, there's all this passive-aggressive behavior, and, oh, you're a scumbag, you're effing blah, 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 blah. And if they have that much hate inside of them, they're not going to be productive in an activist community, period.
Well, maybe so, maybe no. But, we shouldn't get sidetracked on things that people have said. It's the action that we have to worry about.
And I'm telling you, you get in front of these people and have this same conversation, they will hit you.
Has a Free Stater ever hit you?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, I've been hit by a Free Stater before.
What happened?
I was at the CAC.
That's the Keen Activities Center for the uninitiated.
Yeah, it's a former Keen Activist Center where people went there to enact certain things. And I was having a disagreement, sort of like how we are now. And I can debate something and accept somebody else's views without getting upset, because I accept their view. You can have yours, and I'm okay with that. I'm not going to get angry at it. Well, this person was getting extremely angry at it because somebody mentioned that the Bearcat should be driven through a brick wall. And then they said that's aggressive and you could kill somebody. I'm like, it could be a brick wall with nobody on it. Nobody owned it. It was just a statement. And the statement didn't come from me, but it came from somebody that I felt that they were being bullied a little bit. And I said, you should leave them alone. And the dude grabbed me by the neck and threw me right up against the wall because he was infuriated. But again, he was inebriated with extracurricular. He apologized later on, but he was drunk with a mixture of other stuff.
Well, this is what I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I base the aggressive thing on if someone has hatred inside of them, it's going to be portrayed physically at some point. Because I think that if they have that much hate, they most certainly will lay their hand on you, because that's their foundation. If they have a foundation of hate, because hate eventually will hurt you, whether you like it or not.
Well, the other thing that will hurt us is the other thing that will tend to hurt us is, gathering for a bunch of parties. Sooner or later, if you have a bunch of parties, something's going to get broken, something's going to get hit, someone's going to make too much noise, and that has been something that I've never liked at the Keene Activity Center, is the fact that there's always so much activity there in this area that's very residential, right? I always felt like when I would walk to the CAC or be there, I need to do some snow shoveling or something to make up for the fact that I'm taking up a parking space, I'm maybe making a little bit of noise, I'm adding to the level of activity in this residential neighborhood where people are on edge because they don't like seeing so many people in one house, so much activity and so forth. And we want to, it would be better if we were all, good neighbors. And to some extent they do that at the CAC, but it's always better. Anyone who's going to visit there, the more we can do to make that neighborhood more pleasant, the better.
If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.